That girl thinks that I was around with the Lisa Mercedes shit. Told you to take that down, bro. Nah, I didn't mean for it to go like this, Zane. Nah, like, no, listen, dog.
Tell it. You're gonna be single just like you.
Tell her, bro.
You're gonna be divorced just like you.
The sun was setting over Puerto Rico. Waves crashing against the shore like the universe was preparing a soundtrack for drama. Everyone thought this trip was about relaxation, good food, and maybe a little reconciliation between fractured friendships. But the moment Zane opened his mouth, everything shifted. He didn't come here just to sip cocktails and post beach pics. No. Zane came armed with questions. The kind of questions that cut through smiles and turned vacations into interrogation rooms. His words weren't loud, but they landed heavy. What would you do if you knew one of us had a girl out here acting crazy? And you had the proof? It sounded hypothetical, but nobody believed it. That was Zane's trick. He asked like it was casual. But you could see in his eyes he already had the answer, and it was burning inside him. Scrappy laughed at first, brushing it off like the question was nothing. That's who he is, always trying to turn the fire into smoke with a quick joke or a deflection. But there was a stiffness in his shoulders, the kind of stiffness that betrays a man who's been hearing his name dragged through group chats and blogs all month. The whispers about a third baby mama, the rumors about London, the constant side eyes from people who weren't supposed to be talking. Scrappy kept saying it was all cab, all fake stories, but the more he denied, the more Zane pushed. He reminded him about the social media posts, about the jokes that went too far, about how he told him to delete something before it spiraled. And now here they were, miles away from Atlanta, and Zane was bringing it back up like he was deliberately peeling a scab off an old wound. Mendeecees tried to play calm, but the absence of Yandy spoke louder than any words he could give. He said she was in Greece on a business trip, but everyone had already seen the poolside pictures, Yandy glowing, cocktails in hand, living her best life overseas. It wasn't about the distance, it was about the vibe. Who comes to Puerto Rico alone when your marriage is already a headline? Who keeps repeating she might show up like the universe is going to magically deliver her on the next flight? Mendeecees' answer sounded like a man trying to convince himself, not his friends. And Zane, he pounced on that weakness. Why you alone? Where's your wife? He pressed, his words cutting through the humid air. Scrappy piled on, too, like he couldn't resist. Mind at the hotel. Where you at? The laughter wasn't joy. It was discomfort. But the most striking part was when Zane went back to that question, repeating it like he was rehearsing how to drop a bomb. What would you do if you knew something about one of our girls? If you had the proof, and it was wild, would you tell it? He asked it again, softer, like a man trying to see who would crack first. Scrappy said absolutely, tell it. Mendeecees hesitated, saying it depends, not wanting to be the bearer of bad news. That hesitation gave everything away. Zane grinned, not because it was funny, but because the reaction told him he was controlling the room. He wasn't asking for advice, he was dangling bait. And both of them were taking nibbles without realizing it. The conversation turned sharp when Scrappy's baby mama drama resurfaced. Zane didn't even hide his smirk when he asked why his baby mama was going around, saying they were still hooking up. Scrappy rolled his eyes, called it lies, but the damage was already done. Even if he denied it 100 times, the fact that it had to be brought up on a trip like this made it worse. Mendeecees shook his head, trying not to laugh. But you could tell he was relieved the spotlight was shifting off him for a moment. The irony wasn't lost to men with messy pasts, both trying to act like their present was clean. And here came Zane, the wildcard, ripping open old chapters and asking questions nobody wanted on camera. The thing about Zane is that he knows how to play innocent while stirring chaos. He framed it like he didn't want to ruin the vibe, like he was protecting their peace. But his tone betrayed him. It's been killing me inside, he said, eyes locked on both of them. But I don't want to be the bearer of bad news because we're out here having fun. That wasn't restraint, that was theater. He wanted them to squirm, to wonder which one of them his little secret was about. Was it Yandy overseas? Was it Scrappy's rumored third baby mama? Or was it someone completely different? Someone they hadn't even considered yet. Even the background noise, the music, the clinking of glasses, the laughter from other corners of the trip faded out. All you could hear was the weight of Zane's words. He looked at Scrappy, then at Mendeecees, dragging out the silence like a pro. Look at my eyes, bro. This is crazy. That line landed like a stone in water. Neither of them could hold his gaze for long, because deep down they knew that even if Zane was exaggerating, there was always a seed of truth in his mess. And then came the kicker. Scrappy, who's never been shy to throw shade, couldn't even keep the spotlight on Zane without admitting something himself. He said out loud what everyone else was thinking. Zane is the most messiest little guy I've ever met. He compared him to Carly Red, the queen of love and hip-hop gossip herself. That wasn't just an insult, it was an acknowledgement. Because if you're calling someone messier than Carly, then you're admitting that they hold real power over the storyline. And in that moment, Zane wasn't just the new guy on the trip, he was the one controlling the narrative. The cliffhanger came naturally because Zane knew when to stop talking. He dangled the information. He hinted at proof. He painted himself as a reluctant truth-teller. But then he pulled back. If I say it, it's bad. If I don't say it, it's bad. That was the last thing he said before leaning back in his chair, letting the tension hang like humid air after a storm. He knew exactly what he was doing. Now Scrappy and Mendeecees would spend the rest of the trip wondering what he knew, who he was talking about, and when he might finally drop it. The audience would be doing the same. Puerto Rico wasn't about palm trees anymore. It was about paranoia. It was about secrets sitting in plain sight, waiting for the right moment to be spilled. And in the middle of it all was Zane, the messy instigator, with just enough restraint to keep everyone on edge. The next morning in Puerto Rico, the air felt heavier than the night before. The ocean was still calm, the sun still bright, but the energy among the group was different. Nobody was laughing as freely. Nobody was sipping drinks without side-eyeing Zane. His words from last night lingered like smoke that wouldn't clear. When you tell to men with messy histories that you've got proof about their women, you don't just drop a line, you drop a landmine. And now everyone was walking around trying not to step on it. Scrappy was the first to break the silence. He pulled Zane aside, thinking maybe he could get the truth in private, away from the cameras. But Zane wasn't giving him anything easy. Bro, if it was about you, I'd tell you. But it's not just you. It's bigger. That sentence alone sent Scrappy's mind spinning. Bigger how? Bigger who? He pressed, reminding Zane about how messy things had already been with his baby mama drama. He demanded clarity, but all he got back was another smirk. Zane was enjoying this too much to spill it off camera. When the group sat down again, Mendeecees tried to act like he was unbothered, but the tension in his jaw betrayed him. He kept scrolling through his phone, probably checking Yandy's latest posts, wondering if the pictures from Greece were as innocent as they looked. The way Zane kept glancing at him made it worse. It was as if he was silently daring Mendeecees to ask out loud. And finally, he did. If you know something, say it. Stop dancing around it. His voice wasn't angry, it was tight, clipped. The kind of tone men use when they're holding rage back behind their teeth. That was all Zane needed. He leaned forward, lowered his voice, and turned the trip upside down. Since you wanted so bad, I got video proof. One of your women out here moving reckless. And I ain't talking about no random rumor. I'm talking about real footage. The words hit like a tidal wave. Scrappy immediately sat up straight, eyes starting to see if cameras caught every word. Mendeecees froze, the name Yandy written all over his silence even though Zane hadn't said it. The table erupted, half the group gasping, half of them begging him to stop, because once something like that is said, there's no going back. Scrappy tried to laugh it off, saying Zane was just fishing for clout, that he was pulling a Carly Red move for attention. But the shake in his voice gave him away. Zane called him out directly. If it wasn't true, why you so pressed? Why you looking like you already know? The jab landed and suddenly Scrappy's laid-back mask cracked. He slammed his hand on the table, swearing up and down that none of his women were wilding out, that anything on video was fake. But the louder he yelled, the more it looked like guilt. Mendeecees, on the other hand, didn't raise his voice. He went quiet, staring down at the table like he was calculating his next move. That silence was almost worse than Scrappy's anger because it left room for imagination. Everyone watching, everyone listening, started filling in the blanks. Was Yandy really on a business trip? Or was there more to those poolside posts and filtered sunsets? Zane didn't have to say her name. The implication did all the damage. The drama didn't stop there. Once the words video proof were out, it spread like wildfire. The other cast members whispered among themselves, some pulling out their phones, already checking DMs and blogs to see if something had leaked. This is how love and hip-hop chaos works. It doesn't take a full reveal, just a suggestion that receipts exist. That's enough to set the internet ablaze. Zane sat back, watching it all unfold, perfectly content with the storm he had created. He knew he had everyone exactly where he wanted them, confused, paranoid, desperate for the truth. Scrappy couldn't hold it in. He stood up, pacing, talking about loyalty, about how tired he was of people dragging his name through mud. He accused Zane of being jealous, of trying to break apart brotherhood, but his rant only made the others side-eye him harder. Because when you're innocent, you don't explode, you stay calm. Mendeecees finally spoke, his voice low but cutting. You can blame Zane all you want, but if something exists, it exists. Proof don't come from thin air. That line shut the whole group down. For the first time, It felt like Mendeecees was admitting there might be something to the rumor. And that's when Zane dropped the final dagger. He didn't pull out the video. He didn't show receipts. Instead, he leaned back, smirked, and said, if I put it out, it's gonna ruin families. But just know, I got it. So next time y'all wanna sit here acting brand new, remember I don't speak unless I can back it up? The silence afterward was deafening. Everyone realized they had just been handed the biggest cliffhanger of the season. The video might never need to surface. The threat of it existing was enough to destabilize everything. The night ended with no resolution. Scrappy stormed off, swearing he was done letting people play with his name. Mendeecees stayed behind, quiet, looking like a man replaying every decision he had made in the last 6 months. And Zane, he walked away satisfied, leaving the group in shambles. He knew what he had done. He had taken two men with reputations already hanging by threads, and made sure those threads were now fraying on camera. Puerto Rico wasn't supposed to be about drama, but love and hip-hop never lets peace last. With one carefully timed question and one half reveal, Zane cemented himself as a new instigator, the one holding all the cards. Now the only question left hanging in the Caribbean air was simple: when the receipts finally drop, whose world will collapse first, Scrappy's or Mendeecees? Or Scrappy's or Mendeecees?